turning pain into power with grace. That's what Chloe taught us in this latest episode of the 𝒊𝒏𝒔𝒕𝒆𝒂𝒅 podcast. Stay tuned.
Hi, Chloe. Welcome to the 𝒊𝒏𝒔𝒕𝒆𝒂𝒅 podcast.
Hello. Thank you for having me. I'm happy to be here.
You're such a ray of sunshine, Chloe. By the way, guys, Chloe is a clinical Ayurveda specialist. But before she discovered Ayurveda, she was once diagnosed with rheumatoid arthritis. But for many people, Chloe, they don't really know what the difference is because most of the time people will only know arthritis and it's like related to joint pain. So, Chloe, can you help us differentiate what a rheumatoid arthritis is?
Yes. So rheumatoid arthritis, or RA, is an autoimmune inflammatory condition, and it does primarily affect the joints. And so what this means as an autoimmune condition is the immune system, which is meant to protect the body, begins to mistakenly attack the body's own tissues. So in rheumatoid arthritis, this mainly affects the synovial fluid within the joints. So this is synovium, the lining that produces the fluid. It allows for smooth, supported movement. And when this becomes inflamed, it can lead to pain, swelling, stiffness. Over time, changes in the structure of the joints, deformation of the joints. And symptoms vary from person to person. So for some, it's mild and fluctuating. For others, it's more persistent with stiffness and being really noticeable thing in the morning. And RA is systemic as this autoimmune inflammatory condition. So this means it doesn't just stay in the joints. So it can affect the whole body system. And then you have other symptoms that come along with that, like fatigue, fever, often related with what we call the rheumatic flare-up. There can be weight changes, and inflammation can spread to other areas of the body, other tissue layers like the lungs. And it is important, like you're saying, to distinguish the types of arthritis. So often you can think of osteoarthritis as well, and that's more of the wear and tear process over time, whereas the RA is autoimmune and inflammatory.
Yeah, so from this meaning that RA is not just joint issue, it can come at any age, right? Because it's not just something from the wear and tear. So, Chloe, you have said that you were diagnosed at a very young age. You were 8 when you got diagnosed. Can you take us back to that time? How you handled it growing up with an RA, with a condition?
So RA can be the onset at any age. I was diagnosed with juvenile rheumatoid arthritis, and I was diagnosed at the age of 8, but there were signs prior to that. So going all the way back to when I was an infant and young child, I experienced frequent fevers, but they were very short-lived. So it took time before a diagnosis came. Yes. And so I would say, looking back, what it was like growing up in my body, to bring it to one word that is most consistent throughout my experience, it would be confusion. So I was missing a lot of school, and even looking back, it's still confusing, like how much was consistent absence, or was it just certain periods of time that were really impactful? So it kind of came with always this questioning of my own experience. Like, what was physical? What was emotional? What was real? How should I feel being how I was told I should feel? And one of the challenging aspects of RA is that you don't always look sick. So unless there's visible fever, I looked completely fine. So there was nothing external that reflected what was happening internally. And so that doesn't really create an environment for understanding from people around you. So, I'm youngest of 2 siblings. Often I thought I was faking to just stay home from school. Or it's not something that your peers are also going through at the same time. So there is that, questioning. Why am I experiencing this? What is happening in body, and it's really variable, the condition. So you can go periods of time, you feel fine, you almost forget that you're a quote unquote sick kid. And then you wake up one morning and you just are weak and in pain. Maybe there's fever or throbbing headaches. Yeah. And then, so confusion about your body, whether your experience is real, whether you're being believed, about the variability. And that leads to a lot of distrust in the body.
Yes, because it's not really that easy. Because as you said, um, there's constant fever. It's not really that easy, right? I mean, how do you manage that fever? Is there a certain meds like can the fever go down with just paracetamol, for example, or should you use something stronger? Because, like example for my brother, his fever does not just go down with paracetamol. It should be like Advil to lower it. So something like that. Were there no cases that you need a stronger medicine to combat the pain and the fever, Chloe?
Yes. So as a child, I was taking a lot of ibuprofen, like the non-brand name Tylenol, Advil, non-steroidal anti-inflammatory. Yes. And I've never been on medication. Like the primary approach with Western medicine at this time for RA is the DMARD. So working with the body's autoimmune response. So just like slowing down the progression of the condition. Yeah. But I used a lot of ibuprofen as a kid for the fevers.
Yes.
And that's pretty much it.
Okay, so you've already said that there's a lot of confusion, right? There are times that you feel disconnected with your body. So that was also the time that you tried to discover some other methods in order to find a solution to your case, right? So can you tell us how did you discover Ayurveda?
So I would say also as a kid, I did find my first really supportive medicine through martial arts, through karate.
Wow.
So yeah, this really laid the foundation for the yoga and Ayurveda that came much later. Another part of the confusion with missing the school growing up with RA was always feeling behind and like you couldn't catch up, and everyone just knew how to do things both socially and academically. And then there was this pressure that I put on myself to catch up, which having a stress-related autoimmune condition is not supportive for that. So karate was really wonderful because you are in community, you become like a family-like system, but it's very self-paced learning and kind of proving that you can learn. And you have that routine. It's a lot of ritual component to it. There's the breath work brought in. There's the body movement in intentional ways that's supportive. So yes, that really, really became my foundation. So then when I found yoga, probably when I was 18, I'm going to my first yoga class with my mom who had been going. And yeah, that felt like a returning home almost to everything that karate had been. And then through yoga, through practicing more and more, and then having instructors who had studied Ayurveda and bringing in some pieces of that into their teachings, then doing some of my own research, I really, really dove in. And because I was always working to manage the RA, I was quite on this health conscious path, but it was much through listening to what others are saying you should do. And it was very focused on cleansing, on depletion, on overexertion. So then coming to the Ayurveda, there was already this trust there because it was with yoga, which I was experiencing all these great benefits from. And then things just started to make sense. So Ayurveda really adds this layer of listening to the body, and it redefines what it means to nourish and kind of steps outside of that just cleansing, but into building.
Yeah, because as you said, when it comes to RA, Chloe, you're always moving, and then you're having this nutrition. So is it like the more you move, the better you'll get at managing your symptoms?
Movement is definitely helpful, definitely. But there's different types of movement. So I would say prior to Ayurveda, I was more towards depletion with with running, with always exercising versus intentional movement, can be gentle walking, mindful walking, walking in nature and engaging with all your senses and slowing down. Also, like movement is helpful, but a slow pace of movement is also really,
The
really
most
restorative.
beneficial. Yeah, because I was thinking, because most people who have joint problems, they usually have problem with movement, but you are always moving. Up until now, you are doing yoga. So that was like really questioned it. So maybe movement is really one of the things that will help you manage RA. So right now, Chloe, you're on mission, or how are you managing it right now?
So I managed RA with Ayurveda for sure. And a lot of that is focusing on nourishment and rest. So the movement is so great, but you'd need recovery time after. Yeah. So through nutrition, moving away from raw salads, cold smoothies, looking at all the qualities. So in Ayurveda, rheumatoid arthritis is 𝗵𝗹𝒃𝒂𝒅. So 𝗵 is toxins, so accumulated waste in the body, anything that is undigested. So it could be undigested food particles. So impaired digestion gets absorbed into the tissue layers of the body and absorbed through circulation, and then will settle where there is a weakness. So for me, settling into the joints of the body. So undigested food or experiences or emotions or thoughts. So anything that the body was not able to properly transform and metabolize can become accumulated toxin. And then, so 𝗵𝗹𝒃𝒂𝒅. Vata is air and ether element combined together, creating the energy of motion. And it carries the qualities of cool, cold, light, mobile, variable, rough, erratic. And so we have both those components together. And so in Ayurveda, anything that is the same will increase those qualities, and anything that is opposite will decrease. So looking at what is balancing for me is warmth, is heaviness, stability, things that are really unctuous. So looking at having my food always cooked, spiced, having oils added to the food, eating with the seasons. So yeah, and then getting that rest and proper movement, like right time of day for movement.
Yeah, because that's also what I know, that those salads are not the healthiest one for Ayurveda, because it should be cooked, right? Because it should be warm. The same with the traditional Chinese medicine. Really, thank you so much, Chloe, for explaining that side of RA. That is not just clinical, but something that, oh, so it is explained this way. So because of those elements, we can also like manage the symptoms based on the elements that it is like assigned to. So, Chloe, for someone who is struggling from chronic illness right now, it could be RA, could be anything, it could be fatigue, as you said. It's not really easy, as you said, constant fever. That's really challenging, especially if you're young and there's burnout, right? Can you give us like a suggestion, like a one step, so that they can help reconnect with their bodies and they can hopefully start their healing journey?
I love this question. I'm going to say two things. Yes. So 2 practices come to mind. The first is Abhyanga self-oil massage. And this is such a lovely practice because it's carrying all the opposite qualities to Vata dosha, which is what we want if there is chronic illness. Vata dosha is movement. It's the only dosha that can push other elements out of balance. So it's responsible for about 80% of all illnesses. It's usually present when there's imbalances. I'm looking at burnout. You want that nourishment. Vata in excess is depletion. So you're bringing in all the opposite qualities of Vata because you're warming the oil up. It's heavy, it's grounding, it's moist, it's stabilizing. And in Ayurveda, oil is called sneha. And this translates to oil and also to love. So there is this component of passing that love, that self-connection to the body through this powerful medicine of self-touch. And this practice is is rebuilding a relationship with yourself. It's physical nourishment. You have the qualities. You can get herbal oils. You can have different oils for the right time of year and the environment that you're in and the body temperature, matching all of those. But it also can be something that is really, really uncomfortable if you are in a state of depletion or really used to giving yourself to others and not in that place of receiving and then receiving to yourself. So starting small, just picking a simple oil, maybe a sesame seed oil, food grade, or sunflower oil, and doing self-massage on the feet before bed, helping ground before bed. So that would be the first one. And then the second one is yoga nidra, so non-sleep deep rest. And this has been probably my most consistent practice for recovery, especially when I'm in places of burnout or really needing recovery. And this is allowing for that pause. It's essentially a body scan meditation you do lying down. You're moving through the subtle layers of the body into this riding the waves of sleep and wakefulness. And so the body is able to reorient itself. Both of these practices give that pause. So you're connecting to the body and allowing the body to heal itself naturally, connecting to that innate wisdom.
So it's more like relaxing before you go to sleep. After everything you go through, just have to relax. So like body scan is maybe some similar to those somatic scans, right? Because you just have to breathe and all that. So I think even if this are just simple steps, but most of the people don't really practice that, right? So I think because of not doing anything like that, you don't have awareness of yourself. That's where these toxins build up in your body, and then starting to you'll feel things. So thanks so much, Chloe. You're such a sunshine, Chloe. You're always smiling. you know, I would understand why if your classmates or your siblings would say she's not sick, because you are so positive. So it really shows that you are doing so well in managing your conditions. And I hope that anyone who's listening right now who's having RA and having difficulty in how to manage that they would see someone, such a sunshine, managing the condition. I really hope that they will, get inspired, and they will see hope, that there is a hope for them. It's not just pain and the fever and all that. Thank you so much, Chloe, for your time.
Thank you.
Thank you.
I hope you learned something valuable today that can support your healing journey. If you love this episode, please take a moment to give us a 5-star rating and a follow of the 𝒊𝒏𝒔𝒕𝒆𝒂𝒅 podcast. It would really help us reach more people who needs this message. Thank you so much, and we'll see you on the next one. Bye!